Hi, and welcome to another episode of Bridging International Waters. My name is Priyanka V. Pandit, and I have with me the fabulous.
Marcus A. Farry, and thank you for the warm welcome.
Thank you, Marcus. And we're going to talk to you about something that's very close to all our hearts, which is resistance and refusal. I think we see we just before we got into this one, Marcus and I were talking about whether we should do this today or not, and there was both resistance and refusal, and then we realized this is what we're talking about today. So we said instead of talking to each other, let's just get into the podcast and talk about this on our podcast today. So
Well
we're gonna
introduced.
we're going to talk about why exploring the resistance in mediation is important. We're going to discuss about the fears and concerns behind refusal, right? It's so easy for us to just assume or walk out when someone's resisting or someone's refusing to get into something or to do something. But understanding the why can really be empowering and help you get to a resolution. So we're also going to look at the power imbalance that sort of happens, right? It's also otherwise known as power dynamics that can lead to a resistance or refusal in many situations. We're also going to look at situations where people participate in bad faith. And this is very, very important to understand, right? A lot of people will try to abuse process and opportunity, especially in mediation, to try and sort of dig into things or uncover things that they would otherwise not have access to. So we're going to look at situations that where this can happen and how you can sort of deal with it. And of course, we're going to talk about the many cultural factors that influence people's willingness to mediate, right? That resistance and refusal, guys, is not just situation specific, believe it or not. It comes from a lot of background of your nature and your nurture. So that's where those cultural factors sit in, because there are so many thoughts and perspectives that sort of shift with nature and nurture and culture that you sort of brought up in, and it impacts and influences the way you behave and conduct yourself, even in a mediation setting, even if it's voluntary, even if it's confidential. Right, so we're going to talk about all of this today. Over to you, Marcus, to take us through.
You. So why do people resist mediation? Well, there could be a multitude of things going on for them. They don't feel like they have to go to mediation because they might have a senior status.
Mm,
It could be, again, mentioning the power dynamics. Um, they could think that, well, they're always in the right. They they just want to avoid the all the trauma that they've been through, all the
mm,
situational stuff that's happened. They just don't
mm,
want anything to do with it. They feel like if they just step away from it, it's done, and that's the way they can see things. Um,
mm,
I mean, the first one's a powerful one. It says some people believe that mediation means admitting that they're wrong. I mean, because
mm, mm,
in mediation, everyone's right. Yeah, everyone's right until
true,
understanding comes.
true.
Um, let's say a vulnerability, from a vulnerability point of view, let's say if you be vulnerable and share what's really been going on for you, and the other party says, well, they're always like that. It won't be taken seriously at
Mm,
all. And it's like, and therefore that shuts down open dialogue and open communication. So again, the fear of confrontation, it can make the conversations feel overwhelming. Now, if you've got a neutral third party mediator that isn't a part of the organization, they're coming from the outside, nothing gets taken further, and creates that really safe space for the parties in there. There could be a turning point, but they might just, again, avoid it altogether. Can't trust the process because of experiences of another type of mediation that they've been through. Let's say they've done family mediation
mm,
and it was a bad experience, then they've gone into a workplace or a commercial setting, and it's like, well, they're reliving their past experience. They're like, oh, it doesn't work. I recently had a case just like that, actually. That's why I've mentioned it. I was said to him, are you aware of mediation? He was like, well, I've done it in a family setting, not a workplace setting. So there was already that resistance, but yeah, we got on to the joint. And yeah, Priyanka, next slide. Are we gonna, is it gonna, fantastic.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about the power imbalance in these kind of situations, right? This is so important to understand that when people come from different backgrounds, they come with that sort of authority that they are used to. So let's take an example where you're mediating something between a boss and an employee, not at a senior level, at a very junior level, who understands and knows that even if the boss is doing something wrong, just bringing that up can put them in a very difficult position. They can lose their job, they can lose their reputation. In some very high ego driven situations, they can also sort of not stand a chance to get employed in similar circles or industries because people with high positions come with high connections as well. Um, so that's why people can also, despite knowing a lot of things, just sit on information, choose not to speak up, right? Because they're really just trying to save themselves from the onslaught of everything that can go wrong for them, makes them less confident about speaking up openly. I mean, you can also be in a place where, as an organization, there is a culture that promotes and supports open communication and dialogue, but you feel threatened because of the power dynamics there to really open up and express yourself freely. Um, it can also be based on your own personal background where you come from. Maybe this job is, maybe you're the only breadwinner for your family. Maybe this job is really critical for you right now, and you have a lot of debt to pay off, and you can't afford to risk it. Maybe this job is the reason that something else is going to happen in your life. Like in India, typically you see young couples who are sort of wanting to be together, get married. There's so many times they're under so much pressure to just keep a good job, because that can really impact the decision of whether or not someone will choose them as a life partner. There could be so many of these situations which are unknown to you, which could be influencing whether or not a person is going to speak up freely, even if a platform is provided to them. um, so many hierarchies are also involved. You don't know who to trust, you don't know who you can speak to. And especially in family dynamics, there's so many strong emotional hierarchies, because it can really change and impact real time what your life would sort of be in that same setting, because you're going to be with these people for the rest of your life. You're going to see them day in and day out, and walking out on your family is not a solution ever. um, so mediators, when they recognize this kind of power imbalance, when we take separate sessions with you, when we take caucuses, individual sessions, when we reinforce that these are confidential discussions, that kind of safe space can really help open up this kind of dialogue about any power imbalance. We're also trained with experience, of course, on how to sort of recognize this kind of power imbalance if it exists, and how to address it, whether or not to address it in an open forum or whether to address it in an individual session. These are skills that only a seasoned mediator will sort of be able to develop over time and pick up for themselves. It's not something that you can be taught really, but it's something that you can recognize once you've sort of been through enough conflict resolution situations. And that helps us ensure that we can now have a balanced dialogue. Because imagine what kind of discussion it would be. It'd be like someone's just putting a road roller on you and just throwing things at you, and you have no option but to go ahead and accept, because you feel like you're being pulled down or restricted because of all of that baggage that you're sort of carrying with you, which you believe at that point is something that nobody can do anything about. And that's not always true. In my experience in these kind of situations, while it may not be something that is always in someone's control to sort of change for you immediately, just the fact that you can address a power imbalance can help the person who is in that situation think about it differently. think about what other solutions are practicable and possible, or how he or she can navigate that situation differently.
Yeah.
So just creating that sense of fairness can allow for a more meaningful participation when you see that. And then showing the other person who feels that they're in that seat of position of power, how it can sort of do more harm to them in the process if they continue to behave like that, while abusing their position of power against the other person. That can really sort of build equality and trust in the process, and then help us get to a resolution.
Absolutely phenomenally explained. That was brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, this one's critical, Marcus. Bad faith participation.
So, where to start on bad faith? So, for example, some individuals might just turn up without any genuine intention to resolve, to just delay the process and abuse the process to delay court matters.
Yes.
Oh, we need another session because of this unresolved, and they're manipulating the mediation to delay matters so they can get something else sorted elsewhere in the background to support them, or it just delays and delays the process whatsoever. Like unreasonable constraints. So they'll put unfair proposals forward that again don't get agreed upon, and then they're like, that's okay. Well, and it just prolongs the absolute process with these hidden agendas. So or to gain something about it, they might just use it as like an emotional arm of where, well, we've tried mediation, I wanted all this, but it doesn't go ahead because it's all the other party's fault. They've prolonged, they've stretched out the whole thing. And they don't even want a resolution. They just want to use it for their well, I went to mediation because I had to, and then nothing resolved. And it's just more blame and shame for the other party. Again, communication style would be, I don't know why I'm here. I've been told that I need to be here because of all these things someone else has done to me. When any proposals that they're not proposals, sorry, any questions that the mediator will say, try and open that dialogue, will be shut down. I'm going to give an example. Give an example that I can kind of legally say. Like luring a party and trying to manipulate gaslighting. So they'll gaslight a situation where it'll trigger the other party, and then they'll use that to say, I don't even know why I'm here because this is what I get all the time. And it's like,
so true.
I have to be careful where I frame that. To gaslight or
And
manipulate.
well done.
Thank you. To get an emotional response out of the other party to then go, this is why I'm here. I have to put up with all this. And again, we might need another session. So again, it prolongs it further. So then as a mediator, you have to again recognize these patterns from the get-go, early doors.
Absolutely.
As to maintain that sacredness of the integrity of the mediation is absolutely critical. Because again, if the power imbalance is shown, then one party might think you're breaking impartiality because of the behavior of one and versus the other, and then it might, it's bad faith. Never go to mediation with bad faith, but again, people do. It's just spotting them early signs prior, right?
Yeah, and I think they don't understand that this is doing them more harm than the other side. Mediation is an opportunity where you're getting like everyone to come together to explore a resolution that works for all of you. So it's not just about any one person. And I think what happens with bad faith or any level of resistance or refusal really is the cultural background that sort of comes along with it, because that really is how we perceive the situation that we're in, right? So let's say I were to talk about a really remote tier 2 or tier 3 city in India, because we're very, very huge. We have a vast landscape, and we've got so many different tribes and cultural practices across different communities. We may not always understand the background with which that person thinks or perceives of a particular situation, something that I am very, very okay with because I've grown up in a metropolitan city. I've come across people from different cultures, different backgrounds. I have a very open, liberal view. I've had, very different foundation in education. I come from a house which has been very liberal. If all of those things have come together in bits and pieces and helped me have my own perspective of how I see a situation. Um, so that's really the cultural influence that's sort of backing the way I look at a problem, or I look at a situation, or a conflict. Um, in many cultures, uh, talking about the fact that you're in a conflict or a problem is a taboo. Just talking about it. So imagine what toll it would take on someone who comes from that kind of a culture to think about whether or not they can participate in a mediation. It can literally, for them, lead to public embarrassment, loss of status. In some situations, it's so stringent, it can also make them an outcast. So we have communities where we talk about cross cultural marriages happening, and there are communities who are so insistent that this practice should be abolished, not allowed. Very regressive mindset in my opinion, but in their opinion, it could be something that's just the way it works for them and their community and their culture. And it's important to recognize that even if I don't agree with them, I respect their view, because that losing face concept can really be that fear of face loss is such a strong motivator to not do something willingly, not speak up even when you know that you have an option. And in fact, in most cases of deep sexual harassment, so many victims don't come forward just for this fear. And it's very important to understand this, and to understand why there is resistance or refusal. um, I don't know of UK, and maybe Marcus, you'll help us understand this. But in India, this is why one of the perspectives that our courts take is that even if a crime is and a crime which is as gross and violent as sexual harassment, it doesn't have a limitation in recognizing it, because even the courts understand how difficult it can be for someone to sort of come on record
Yeah.
and give a statement in something that so wrong has happened with them. Similarly, even in mediation, but we can never be assumptuous about why someone's refusing something or why someone's resisting opening up.
Yeah.
There's definitely a reason that they believe is critical for them to hold on to before they can freely express themselves or freely participate. So it becomes very important to understand the why of things. This helps us build cultural sensitivity, understand more about where people come from, what their school of thought is, and helps us build trust and understanding, and also helps us gain so much experience in learning somebody else's perspective, right? Because it's
Yeah.
it's not like just our own individual perspective is the right one. There is no right or wrong. There's just different, and it helps us become accepting of that difference.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it's admitting that it happened, whether it was one extreme to another, that like, especially
Absolutely.
from a cultural point of view in the UK, it'd be taking that first step forward and the willingness to speak openly, that knowing they have to accept that that happened to him, where it might be been
Mm,
buried for such a long period of time, of where they struggle to actually speak about that.
yes.
And the willingness to come forward and go, look, this did happen. They might not refuse to speak to the other side,
Mm,
and that's obviously how mediation works, and that's why it usually can go legal. But I think a lot of restorative justice as regards to the prisons is if they get their chance to speak to the other side, or in that respect to resolve that, it can bring a lot of healing and a lot of understanding.
Absolutely.
And it's a very
Absolutely.
transformational process if it does get to that stage. So yeah, very well highlighted there.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And again, which
Yes.
brings us to our last slide for our reflection and bridge moment. Resistance does hide fear or uncertainty. So if you are resisting, the fear and the uncertainty of what's going to happen might grow. Where if you do take the first step into facing the fears, it can open a door to open dialogue, constructive dialogue, understanding. Again, it says compassion on there as well, but I'll let Priyanka explore that further. But it's hiding in that uncertainty of these things, and all these
Absolutely.
exposures come around, and it's like it's how to handle that. It's having a supportive network, a supportive mediator, a supportive environment that the mediator does create, that you can then come forward and go,
Right.
okay, this happened, what you didn't know about. Again, another mediation I did was quite intense. And it was like that other party didn't have they've read notes about what happened to the person because he was there, like,
Mm.
he had like stars and stripes, and he was a high
Mm.
senior to the other person at being long serving in
Mm.
the civil service, call it. And once the senior actually explored, the high ranking officer explored why
Mm.
the
Mm.
other officer, what it actually felt like for him in that, and why it changed his life, that experience and that moment.
Mm.
The high ranking officer had never been anything like what the other person's been through.
Mm.
That was the healing. That was the transformation. So yeah, it can open
Such
definitely the door to
power in
dialogue.
compassion. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Really, I mean, it brings us to that point that's on your screen, Marcus, that compassion can really transform reluctance in engagement, right? Just knowing that the other person is open and empathetic and is going to be compassionate and understanding, even if they're not agreeing, but they understand where you sort of come from. That can be so empowering and transformative in the dialogue. Um, which brings us to the reflection for today. So, and I encourage our viewers to also sort of reflect on this. What fear might someone be protecting when they resist mediation or any conversation? Actually, it doesn't have to be mediation.
They could be
Let's think
protecting another
about.
person, right? Could be
That's
protecting
so
the
true.
story or the face of another person, organization, culture that they've developed, group. It could be a multitude of
Yes.
things. I don't think we've got another. Could do a 20 minutes on that alone. But
So true. There's no right or wrong answer to that one either. You
yeah,
never know, which is why it never hurts to ask. If they trust you enough and you've created a safe space for them to sort of disclose it to you, they might just do
yeah,
that. So,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. um, we'll park that because it's a
Yeah,
lot to unpack. So
absolutely.
resistance, our bridge moment. Take it away, Priyanka.
A bridge moment. Resistance often protects fear, and that is so true for all of us. Even if we feel we're being silly about something or there's no reason, there always is. We're just not able to sort of contemplate or put it in words, or we've not realized it for ourselves, but there's always an underlying fear. And when you understand that fear, it sort of empowers you to move beyond it, and deal with it. Doesn't always have to be confrontational, can just be acknowledgement, which can sort of set you free. So, yeah, think
I love
about
this
the
quote.
fact that resistance often protects fear.
I love this
It's a
quote.
bridge moment.
Fear is a mile wide and an inch deep.
So
It's
true.
scary, it's big, but once you just take that first step,
Yeah.
I don't know why I was so fearful of that. It's
Yeah.
a
And it's a
mile
beautiful
wide and an
quote.
inch deep.
Mile
Yeah, I
wide
love
and
that.
inch deep. Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
lovely. Thank you for that, Marcus. That's perfect for us to close this. But thank you everyone for joining us for today's podcast, and thank you, Marcus,
Thank you again.
for
Thank you so
this
much.
opportunity. Thank you. I will see you for the next one.